Welcome to the channel. I am Mike and this is Humble Running. Today I'm going to be bringing you a review of the On Cloudultra Pro. I'm going to be getting out here on the run, talking about specs, fit, feel, impressions, all that. I'm 3 days out from a very rugged 108K test run / race, river of no return out here in Idaho. Very rugged trail. So obviously these shoes, as you can see, are quite well tested. I'll be talking about the race, on the run, also of course impressions as I'm going today. Excuse my running, it's going to be a little bit of janky. Again, I am 3 days out from that race. 15,000 feet of gain, 66 plus miles, so well tested in this shoe. Let's get out on the run. Well, before we get started, let's take a quick look at this upper here. As you can see, it's quite a spacious fit. I would say out of the trail super shoes, this one is probably the one that has the most regular fit. Even, I would say, foot shaped. I mean, this is quite wide. I have these in a US 10. I typically wear a 9.5, and often I do go for a 10 for ultras. I was not sure about the On sizing here. I had tested the Cloud Vista 1 in a 9.5, which was very snug. I recently tested the Cloud Vista 2 in a 10, which felt, I think, similarly as large as this, maybe not as wide as this shoe. But for ultra distances, again, I did just run 108K in these shoes right here. I've got a full thumbs width. The tip of my big toe is right here. So you can see I've got pretty much a full thumbs width. Again, when you're going downhill and that shoe is flexing like this, I'm not bumping up against the front of the shoe, which is what you want to have in your especially ultra shoe sizing here. Again, take a look at that. It's almost Topo-esque, I would say, the width of this shoe. It's actually quite surprising to me from On. It feels very comfortable on foot. One thing noticeable, these seem pretty far apart to me, and I did count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows of eyelets here, which seems to be not so many. I took a look at some other shoes and they were varying generally around 6 rows. So quite a bit of space between the eyelet rows here. You can see this is covering a pretty large span. Considering the spacious fit, I think that's a little bit curious why they don't have 6. I guess they probably wanted to work in this flex point right here. You can see the gaps in the mesh here in the upper. This is pretty wide open. That's my sock in there. You have thicker strands going vertically and these very thin strands going across, kind of holding it together. This is a bigger gap by design. This area, I guess, improved ventilation right through here. If you take a look at also on the lateral side here, a little shadowy here, but you can see there's bigger gaps here, and also in the toe box, this is completely open. There's no inner mesh kind of holding anything out. It was quite dusty and dry and in parts of the race that I was in, and I feel like maybe I'm changing my mind on this aspect of shoes. Sometimes I would see this and think, oh no, this is going to be a disaster. It's going to let a lot of stuff in, but it really doesn't. I think most of the stuff that gets into your shoe in trail races or long ultras, it does come in through the collar. And as you can see here, very nicely sealed all around here. This is a really great collar from On. Hey, why don't I pop one off? All right, well, take a look at this collar here. You can see thick ring of interior padding. It's brushed, very soft here, and this part right here, again, this is also, it's cut out here and sculpted, so you can see how this, there's no kind of rigidity pressing into the back of your heel or Achilles here. This is just great. The padding is about this thick all the way around along the interior. So, you know, with any super shoe, quick look at flex here. Decent up front by the toes, but again, you have that speedboard in there. It's thick, it's kind of forked in this type of shape here, and it's also forked under the heel, but it's uniform right under the middle. So you're going to have that less flexibility over there, and that's what's going to give you that bit of propulsion that you would expect expect from a plated shoe. This one's not carbon plated, but it's going to be stiffer around this area. Sometimes that's challenging. As I was kind of talking about the plate there, what I had in mind was that with a stiff shoe, plated shoe, either road or trail, the tendency is, you know, there's less flex in the shoe, so there's tendency for your heel to want to come up. So that was something I noticed when the shoes were pretty fresh out of the box. I was able to get about a 4-mile test run in before the 100K race. Don't try that at home. Wouldn't recommend that, but hey, I did it. And that was one thing I felt. I felt a little bit of movement in here in the race. It was not an issue at all. Again, that padding comes down probably about to here all around. So even with maybe a slight touch of movement, which can be unavoidable in a super stiff kind of plated super shoe, either road or trail, given the plushness, this material is brushed even. It's very soft. Given just a touch of movement, I got no irritation at all throughout the race. No pressing, no rubbing, no blistering on the heel, nothing. Perfect fit. And that goes all around the foot. I mean, the foot shape, really great. I had no foot. I did my standard kind of ultra taping. I taped my big toe. I taped my heel, the outside of the heel, because sometimes I could tend to get edge blisters there. This is any ultra trail race. I do this. Big toe, I tape the middle of the ball of my foot and the edge of the ball of my foot just below the big toe. And one other spot. One thing about the upper I noticed, one area of concern, I noticed there's a bit of, I don't know what to call it, maybe crinkliness over here. When they were fresh out of the box, I would almost kind of like hear it kind of scrunching up. That seems to be like a flex point of the upper. Maybe, I don't know what they could have done here, but it does see, as you could see as I go like this, I could kind of feel this pushing into the side of just the base of my pinky toe on my forefoot there. I was a little bit concerned that this could be an issue during the race, but it was zero issue. I did tape that area. Given that I felt that was the one area of concern that I felt. You could see the kind of crinkliness there. I wonder if they could have in some way done something here or smooth this out. Again, I have a US 10, so I do have extra space here. Maybe it's just hitting my, the creasing is just hitting a certain spot, being the larger sizing that I have in this shoe. That could be the case. I don't think so, though. I think you want to be at this size for, say, the 108K that I did run, or 100 miles that the shoe is probably designed for. I think you want to have this kind of sizing, full thumbs width. So anyway, I was noticing this. I did put tape on this area, and again, that was a zero issue, just like any type of heel slippage or any other irritation for that matter. During the race, one thing I did notice, I was getting some kind of rubbing, maybe around here. Like this comes and goes in my racing. I did not have a blister or even an early blister. It was just something I noticed, and maybe it could be like there's a lot of creek crossings, stream crossings, water, mud. Maybe at certain points it just kind of like got a little irritation just from grit and grime rubbing in there. I don't think that's anything out of the ordinary. Maybe in a race I might tape that area next time. But like I said, I got through 12 hours, 45 minutes, 66 plus miles, and it wasn't even red. It's just like something that I felt, but it wasn't even an early stage blister there. So not a problem at all. I wouldn't worry about that. All around, extremely comfortable upper, spacious toe box here, spacious up front. I think you could go true to size, or again, half size up as I have. First summit just passed. Heading down to Bay Horse. Got about a 3.7 mile descent down to Bay Horse on stuff like this. Gotta be a little careful. It is early in the race for sure. Not the time to risk an ankle roll. So let's get it out of the way. This is a $260 trail super shoe, and it is a super shoe. We have 38.5, 32.5 stack, 6 mil drop, high stack, soft foam, Helion HF, and plated. Now that's On's speedboard here. Not exactly a carbon fiber plate, but serving the same purposes of giving you that propulsion sandwiched inside an ultra cushy, soft, high stack ride and feel. I did manually measure the stack height, of course. I got 39 millimeters, so that's right on target with their 38.5. The Helion HF foam is set up in a dual layer here. You've got a full length softer layer directly under the foot, and then a firmer layer sandwiched between that layer, the speedboard, and the outsole. The speedboard's right there in the middle between those two foam layers. It's an X-shaped speedboard, so uniform, kind of thicker around the middle of the foot under the arch, and then big fork, big split up front around the forefoot, and also a big split under the heel. I really like this design of the speedboard here just because I don't feel it. Previous speedboards have really given me issues. They've just been too noticeable, especially the Cloud Vista. Just felt like version 1 specifically, felt like a marble under the center of the ball of my foot. Now, the Cloud Venture Peak is another one. That's kind of a firmer, technically oriented shoe. I'll forgive them for that one. But this one with the fork, it seems to really avoid that pressure point directly centered under the ball of my foot. I would say, you know, in my, I don't know if you want to call it limited On experience, I haven't run in any of On's road super shoes with speedboard, so in that regard, limited. But this is their best speedboard for me. Again, this is a legit super shoe. That speedboard does give you that propulsive effect that you would expect when you're spending $260 for a plated or whatever boarded shoe. I'm moving pretty slow today. Whew. I think the legs have got that muscle soreness in the quads for sure. But even though it's quite level, my lungs are not back either. So as I started talking, I'm like, wow. Not able to typically spew off as I do most of the time, at least not as easily. So if you pop these guys on in the house before you even hit the trails, you will notice that kind of lever action you get. You get on the ball of the foot, take that stride, even in your dining room, living room, kitchen, wherever, and you'll feel that kind of lever giving your heel a little bit of boost, kind of pushing you forward a little bit. Yeah, it's all there with this shoe. Now, I was not given specs as to the actual foam composition of this shoe. I was just given the name of it. I will say that it feels highly dynamic, highly energetic on the run. The softness of that upper layer is definitely felt. It feels soft in a dynamic way, not in a squishy way that feels like it's bottoming out. It seems to just rebound relatively quickly. And again, I've got probably 70 miles plus in this shoe, and they feel exactly the same. I don't feel maybe a touch of break-in under the balls of my foot, maybe a touch of just contouring, breaking into my personal foot shape, but I don't notice any deforming. A lot of times, even in early miles in a shoe, say maybe even 20, 30 miles, I will have noticeable kind of depressions under the balls of my foot, especially by the big toe area where I put a lot of pressure when I'm running, or a lot of even foot strike impact when I'm running. I don't notice that at all after, 70 rugged miles. At this point, they feel great on the run. Seems to be high energy return from this foam in combination with that speed board. If you take a close look here, you'll notice this kind of setup is similar to the Adidas Speed Ultra in that you've got this lower section which is kind of disconnected and works to kind of allow the platform to be wide, but also allow some contouring. I think with the Adidas being so unstable, that was really necessary, but it's a similar setup here, not as extreme as the Adidas for sure. The Adidas definitely has a wider forefoot platform, and this cutout and this kind of flat wings or whatever they are, that kind of design is definitely wider and bigger in the Adidas, but you could see how it does kind of allow some flex of that. You do have the cloud pods in there. Now, the tech sheet says that these were designed in such a way where the voids are larger in the center, I guess under the ball of the foot, and they say that they narrow at the edges. So you can kind of see the compression there. So I guess the wider voids under the middle of the foot would be more impact absorbing without allowing it, if they maintain the width. Or a lot of their shoes, say the Cloud Surfer that I tested, that shoe felt a lot more unstable than this one. And you can see the pods really flexing and twisting when I had that shoe on. This one, you could see a little bit of, you could definitely see them in action here, but I don't get that lateral instability that I definitely felt with the Cloud Surfer. Version 1, that is. Haven't tried version 2, but I assume it would be kind of similar. Again, you can see the flexing there, but it is very stable. Like, this allows some contouring, instead of being rigid and perhaps maybe throwing your foot, it allows some give to your foot. Now, this may be something you have to get used to on the run, having that amount of play, but I think it's good if it was, sometimes when a shoe is rigid, it could lead to more ankle rolls. So again, something maybe to get used to, but again, the pod setup here, whatever they did with, hollowing them out more in the middle and tapering them towards the edges, it does seem to work well as far as stability. Climbing out of Bay Horse now, just after the turn. I think about 5 miles to the top of Ram's Horn. Pack switch, had the Instinct loaded up with the poles there. Didn't need them in the first part. Went a little light. The Patagonia vest and a bottle. So easy swap from my drop bag. This one fully loaded for the next segment. It's on my next drop bag. Picked up my bucket hat, of course, just in time. The sun is hitting me on my back right now. Just starting to gain some elevation here. Now this is some solid Idaho 2-track right here. Double wide, baby. Continuing my climb here. I think, hard to gauge. I'm in second right now. I was anywhere between 3 and 6 minutes behind at Bay Horse. Hard to judge going down and with the aid station time. I didn't ask. Behind me to third, I could tell had about a 6.5 minute gap because I could see the aid station up from the ledge as I went back out, and I could see them cheering. It's like I was leaving or getting ready to leave. I do distinctly remember hiking out lots of parts of this very section last time I did this. Maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I had just moved from New Jersey, and a 5-mile climb from like 6,000 feet close to 10,000 feet was not really something I had experienced before. But after 6 years living out west now, definitely able to run this out way more than I did before. Little descent before Ramshorn. Just kind of turning the legs over here. Shoes are great. Really pretty stable, but still high, and you know, these rocks can throw you in any shoe if you're not careful. So it's still early. I'm letting the legs go, but not fully bombing this out right now. Being a little cautious. Okay. Probably now the real climb begins. Have to bust out the poles. Oh, jeez, almost tripped. Ooh. Might have finally hit the top. I don't know. Maybe I gotta go higher. Not even sure. That was a long one. Feeling okay though. Pretty high. I don't know what. Over 9,000. Tricked me. I think that was the high point, but a little bit of snow in this little rise here. I was told I can go around it, but I went the wrong way. Should have gone left. No matter. Whew. Oh, nice up here. Get set for the down. Alright, that was not the top. I think I gotta go up there. 3/4 of a mile more up. Whew. Just screw it. I think I'm gonna go around this one. 6 mil drop here does feel like a solid 6 millimeters. It doesn't feel flat, doesn't feel overly steep. Good contouring under the arch. I talked about in the beginning how I did get perhaps a little feeling of rubbing. Not sure if that was underfoot or the edge of underfoot or if it was the upper. Again, no hint of irritation throughout the duration of my test run / race there. But the 6 mil feels legit. I mean, this is as close to a solid 6 mil as you'll probably find. A lot of times they'll say 6 mil, but it can vary if they feel lower or there's a big heel sweep that makes it feel effectively lower on the run. That's not the case here. Feels like a steady 6. Speaking of that 6 mil drop, I got the shoe off again here. Again, it feels very steady. 6 right down here. Good support under the arch, contouring. I don't think, it just feels very smooth, very refined support under the arch. I don't notice any, like sudden humps in any particular area. It just feels like a gradual kind of contour right in the right spot. At least for me in the US 10, feels perfectly supported. Feels like it kind of helps me from over-pronating, having that support under the arch, especially given that it's a high stack. If you take a look at the heel area, one thing and one advantage that this shoe has over other trail super shoes is the heel area, absolutely for sure. It's not overly wide, but there's not a huge tail rocker. I don't know if you could tell, like your foot is kind of the edge here and the tail rocker starts here. A lot of shoes, the sweep is just much steeper and maybe they go with a much softer foam underfoot, or somehow it's oriented where it kind of curves up more under the rear of your foot, giving you kind of a less stable platform. This shoe feels exceptionally stable under the rear of the shoe. Ground landings, heel striking, descents feels night and day. The Adidas Speed Ultra is one that's an extreme example. You feel like if you stand up straight, you might fall off backwards down over this bridge here. This one here, not the case. You stand and you're solidly planted. You feel like you're planted, at a 6 millimeter, ready to go. The Adidas, not the case. The Adidas wants you on that forefoot, wants you to go. I'm talking about that shoe a lot because that's kind of, I feel like that's probably the closest comp to this shoe. I have it back at the truck. I'm gonna take a quick look when we get back there. But major difference between this one and other super shoes is the rear foot stability. And I feel like that's something when people are looking at trail super shoes, that seems like it could be a big detriment because not everybody is running 6-minute miles for 100 miles or 7-minute miles for 100K or what these pros are running, okay? People want a little bit more stability throughout the midfoot and throughout the rear. You can see from this platform here, it narrows, but not to an extreme narrowness here. The width, it's not really necessarily about the width of the ground platform. There's definitely wider heels than this, although this is pretty good. It's just the overall geometry of the shoe, how they have it, so it's not super soft and squishy and unstable under the heel. Actually, one of their marketing people told me that they took downhill running very specifically, that aspect of it, into the design of this shoe. They wanted this shoe to work very well on descents because obviously that's half of the running. If you're going up, then you got to go back down in a race most of the time. But yeah, definitely stable in the rear, and I think that's one of the main advantages that this shoe has over other specific trail super shoes. So moving from the rear of the shoe to the front of the shoe, one other distinction of the shoe I think is the very smooth and more gradual toe rocker up front. all the foot into the toes. A lot of the modern road and trail super shoes rely heavily on a heavy and steep front toe rocker. You know, they're trying to jam as much stack as they possibly can underfoot to cushion your foot from impact, and also, you know, keep your foot insulated from maybe a firmer plate. They want to get that heft, maybe that stiffness also moving along. So one way to do that is just really make the front toe rocker steep, like really make it roll up front by the toes. That's not so with this one. You of course have a good healthy toe sweep up front, but it's not as aggressively steep, definitely not as high as some other trail super shoes. It's just more gradual, and what that does is it gives it a smoother ride for sure, and it kind of makes it feel like a regular shoe. I mean, this may be the trail super shoe that feels the most like a regular shoe than any of the trail super shoes, with that rear heel being so stable and with the front rocker being not so aggressive. I think that's probably one of the primary aspects that's going to make this shoe pretty accessible to, I don't want to say regular runners, but let's say non-professional, elite speed demon type of runners. You know, those type of runners could run in everything, but I think most people, maybe they want a trail super shoe, but I think most people, maybe you want a trail super shoe, but maybe with not the aggressiveness that's inherent in the design of some of those plated high stack shoes. If what I just said is striking you, this may be a shoe that you want to look at. Also, another factor, the width of the shoe, the comfort of the toe box, comfort of the shoe in general. I pointed out that smooth and soft padding around the heel collar. All those things are kind of, it make it feel like just a super plush training shoe, but again, the foam, very advanced. Speedboard gives you that propulsion. You know, it's like, it's kind of a mix of a super comfy training shoe with kind of super elements blended in. That sounds appealing, right? Oh my gosh, I'm going downhill now. Quads are screaming. But then when I was going uphill, I couldn't catch my breath, so I need a few more days of recovery. So I was a bit concerned about the rockiness, technicality, unevenness of the course that I was running on Saturday. This shoe, just, you know, when I say it feels like a regular shoe, it's still 38, 32 or 39, 33 stack, whatever the case may be. You're still high. The foam is still soft, dynamic, really a lot of energy coming back. So you do have to manage that in technical terrain. If it's rocky, uneven, you know, you're high off the ground. I mean, you cannot get around that. So the course was just tons of rugged, tire-eating Idaho double track, like the worst drivable roads, drivable forest roads that you'll probably ever see, you know, that are at least somewhat passable without, you know, an extreme vehicle. But I found it handled everything really, really well. Of course, I had to take care. Again, my time was 12 hours, 45 minutes, so there were times where I was running fast when it was smooth, but the times where it was really rugged and really rocky, of course, you know, I don't have to go crazy there. I can manage the shoe through those areas. protection was very good. You got that speed board there, got a lot of stack. I didn't notice anything. You could see in some of these clips from the race, none of those rocks. I did not notice any sharp hits or impacts of any sort getting through to my feet. I was really quite comfortable throughout the entire race, which is really something. So purely based on my race experience, I would not have any reservations about the handling of this shoe in any type of ultra distance, say 50K and beyond. The paces, the speeds that you're going to be running in those types and durations, mainly in distances of ultras, in say, of course, runnable terrain, no problem. This is going to be a great shoe for that. Light trails, gravel trails, moderate, up to sections of light technical or technical trails. If you're going to look at a heavy technical course, alpine terrain, just like rocky, steep, uneven throughout, then I would say you might not be looking for this type of trail super shoe anyway. I'm not sure some of the competitors that I have in mind would also be a good choice for that type of terrain. But again, I just do have to point out the limitations in very technical terrain. Again, high stack, soft foam, energetic speed board here. You're going to be limited, but I think that comes with the territory. And again, my race had sections of pretty rocky, pretty rugged stuff. I wouldn't call it extreme. A lot of the ascents and descents were not crazy steep and technical, but again, I don't think you would be looking for this type or class of shoe anyway if you were running in that type of terrain. So I'm not trying to hold it against this shoe in particular. One area that I may call out is the outsole. To me, it strikes me as a little bit skimpy. The lugs are 3.5 millimeters. I measured. They were not written in the tech sheet. I wonder if maybe that's why. I forgot what they called it, finite element analysis. I'm gonna put that on the screen. I might have butchered that. They use some type of technique to design the outsole. You've got chevron shaped lugs, pretty standard, but they seem to be in a radial type of pattern that is kind of circular, directionally pointed out from the middle of the foot. That might be something with their analysis that they did. But again, it seems like there's not a lot of lugs, and they're 3.5 millimeters. Take a look at my outsole there. I have some abrasion, but I'm not overly concerned. I didn't lose any chunks of lugs. And again, this was a very, very rugged terrain. Like probably and sections of road for that matter. 6-mile road finish and very fast downhill descents on kind of gravelly, rugged, outsole rubber chewing terrain. A little bit of abrasion on the outsole at 70 miles. I would call it normal. They're not like pristine, but again, given the conditions I was running in, I would call it normal. Traction wise, 3.5 millimeters. It's not going to be super versatile in soft ground. I would say it makes the shoe lean more towards dry runnable terrain just from the outsole aspect alone. Lug depth, volume of lugs and rubber underfoot. It's just not designed for that. I didn't have any problems with traction. Went through actually a lot of soft ground, soft grassy stuff, mud, snow, pretty much everything. Not extended, it didn't rain during the race, so I wasn't running on extended, slick rock. So at least for me, that's going to be a TBD. Not sure when I'll get a chance in this type of area where I'm at to really push them in that regard. We'll see. But yeah, the outsole is probably, that's the one aspect that I would say is a bit of a, would get points deducted, if any, from this shoe. The ride of this shoe is just so smooth. Again, that kind of shallower than typical of a trail super shoe rocker. I hope that came across right. That rocker up front is just smoother. I feel like I get good feel without the shoe wanting to catapult me forward, you know, into the front of my toes, you know? I feel like I get a little bit of more contact time at the ball of my foot, a little bit more lingering there. I think that may be a good feeling for a lot of runners. Now, I do think that makes them perhaps not as fast as some of the shoes, like the Adidas Speed Ultra. I think it feels like a quicker shoe. I'm not sure if it be the energy rods. I do think it's a touch lighter. I think it's 9.5. This one's 9.8 ounces, 278 grams in my US 10. So, you know, they kept a little of that foam under the midsole. Again, didn't fully sculpt out an extreme toe rocker. So perhaps they sacrificed a little bit of weight there to make it an overall smoother ride, more accessible ride for a lot of runners. And, you know, generally, I would say more stable than most super shoes. So at 9 ounces, it's not heavy, but I think my Tecton X is 9.7. Okay, 0.1 of an ounce, no big deal. Speed Ultra is 9.5. The Puma shoe is 9.5, but that one's closer to the ground, not nearly as cushioned. So, you know, it's really, weight-wise, it's really in the range of other trail super shoes, just like a smidge higher, but you're getting something for that. It's not kind of extra weight. You're getting a smoother ride, getting more stability in the rear of the shoe. Definitely, you know, worthwhile touch of weight gain. So I love the smoothness of this shoe, although I still wouldn't consider it as like a daily training shoe. Obviously, it's $260. I mean, it's possible if you're generally in more runnable terrain, but I think for day-to-day training, I want to have a little firmer feel, less bouncy, less that like this bouncy, dynamic. This feel is just great at certain times, but you know, you don't want to lean into this every single day. Probably want a little firmer ride, a little bit more stability in the twisty and turnies, like this shoe, like a lot of trail super shoes. Has to be massaged through certain uneven technical areas, and you know, day-to-day training, you don't necessarily want to do that. Kind of want to just get out there and rip through some stuff and have fun. So I wouldn't peg it as a shoe that you'd want to run in every day, although you could. It feels really great. Just past Buster Lake aid station, the little climb after that, that's 3 of the 4 climbs down. I got a long, not so hot right now, but the bottom of this climb is like a furnace on a fire road. We'll see. It's a little windy today. And then a station there, and then one big climb, and then a long 11 or 12 mile descent to the finish. My other camera died, so missed a big section in the middle there, but we're in the home stretch now, sort of. I don't know. Feeling okay. Trying to keep track of my fueling situation here. I've got those SIS gels. Lose track of time a little bit, but then I try to reset at a quarter past or a half past. There's just 7:30, so I took a gel. So if I take one every 30, it gives me 80 grams. And then these bottles, I'm at least drinking one in that time. So I should be drinking two. So that would put me at that scratch. So that would put me at 120. A little bit of buffer if I kind of forget. I did have a couple of dry sections there. I miscalculated or mistimed my water fill up, so it was a little dry, but then kind of chugged some extra bottle a couple times to reset. Did go to the bathroom a couple times, so I think I'm kind of on target. I filled up a lot of fluids for this long descent here. Try to knock it all back. Hopefully a nice pee somewhere along the way here. This is the hot section I was talking about earlier. I don't even know if you can hear me. It's pretty windy, so that's good. Kind of like this all the way into the next aid station. If it's calm and sunny like this, it's brutal. But scenic. Just past third to last aid station. And one more with a drop bag. They moved this one a little longer, so 10-mile segment here, and then final 9-mile descent to the finish. Whew. I'm still hanging in there. The quads feel good. Actually, surprisingly, running downhill is much better. The last huge climb here, I'm gonna try to do a bit of hiking, steep parts. Want to save the legs because that last, it's 9 plus I think 2 to the last 8. It's like 11 miles pounding downhill, so I don't want to burn out on the last climb before that one. I am completely dragging here. This last climb, a beast. It's wearing me out. I got like 8/10 to go. I think I can't get going. The higher I get, the less energy. Whew. I am shocked I've not been caught yet. Maybe the other guys or whoever else is back there is struggling just as much as me. It's kind of hot. It's kind of dry. Whew. 3/4. All right. Running is few and far between on this last climb here. Completely dragging. I think this is it. Oh, heading down. Nobody came for me yet. On the descent now. Ooh, having a rough go. A little better, I'm moving. I got passed by 2 guys though, so I am in 4th now. Really struggling. The uphill took my legs and really affecting my downhill now. 5 miles to go. Sitting in 4th. Trying to knock this one out here. Pavement the rest of the way. So I've got the most comparable shoes, I think, right here at the moment. This one being the most competitive, or most comparable, that is. Adidas Terrex Speed Ultra. You could kind of see here mainly what I'm talking about with the toe sweep. Maybe it's difficult to see at the angle. The Adidas starts here and swoops up super high. This one, maybe hard to tell. It's kind of more flat here, and it just very gradually sweeps up. So you just have more kind of feel at the front of the ball of the foot, the base of the toes, if you know what I mean. It just has a more kind of stable feel up front. The Adidas really, wham, wants to get you off. Again, let's put these here. The width is actually similar. You see these wings on the Adidas here? They are a little bit more kind of flexy than the On one. The ground platform is actually, it's actually quite wider with the Adidas here, but a lot of it is that kind of overhang from here. The base of the shoe is very similar. They have that wing set up. The Adidas one just kind of, they stick out a little bit more, and I think that's due, if you compare both of these shoes underfoot, super pulled in with the Adidas here. Definitely not as narrow here. And the heel, you have very aggressive sweep on the heel. The On, like I said, it just seems to be back here, and it's perhaps a little bit offset on the lateral side, a little bit more here. It doesn't sweep out as much on the inside, so that makes it, it's way more stable. Like if I'm standing in both of these shoes, I almost fall backwards in the Adidas. Like you have, like you can see here, this rocker, you almost have essentially nothing under the heel. Like this is, I can't see anybody heel striking in this shoe. Maybe you do if you're really quick with your foot strike, but very difficult shoe to be stable on the heel. Night and day difference here between the On shoe. This shoe is a little bit closer to the ground. The Puma here, this foam nitro TPU, it's more energetic. The plate is definitely more active in this shoe. Take a look at my video. I ran Roby Creek half marathon in this shoe. If you want an example of, say, when you would pick a shoe like this over a shoe like these two, again, half marathon, full gas, fast run, runnable terrain, dirt road, no kind of technical trails or anything like that, I would pick this shoe over these two easily. It's just faster, lower to the ground. If you watch, I did get a little irritation. This, you could see the difference in these heels here. For one thing, this is the best by far, most comfortable, no issues. This is, I've talked about this, don't know what's going on here. Just saw Cody Lind at River of No Return. Paul Lind, his father of Western States, he runs River of No Return. That's his race. Cody Lind, I could say this, he said they're going to fix the heel. Everybody wants them to fix the heel. Again, looking at this one here, look how high this sticks up. I did get blisters after that 13.1 mile half marathon there. So this one, not a great design. I don't know why it has to be sticking up. They could have chopped this a little bit lower. Maybe that's something I'll do with a razor blade if I want to really race in this, or I find a a usage where I would want to be careful with this. I might trim this down a little. Look at that, not good. You could see how flat the On one is compared to the Puma. Okay, like I do feel like this is a little high, but again, everything in here is super soft. I ran 13 hours and this did not bite my ankle at all, so no problem here. But again, you can see if this works perfectly fine, why does this have to be like this? Again, I can't answer that question, but I would change it in this one. I don't see this as a long ultra distance shoe, especially in technical moderate terrain, just because it's just so energetic, so bouncy. Maybe a faster race, more runnable terrain, or technical terrain where you know you're not going to be out there that long. Your legs are going to feel fresh enough where you could kind of hop around and handle that type of terrain. When you're in shoes and running distances that you would in these, you're kind of assuming at some point your legs are going to be fatigued, and you're just going to have to lean into the shoe a little bit more to, for cushion and support. Whereas if this one, you're kind of picking this for a race where it's about fitness, and the muscle damage is not going to come into play in a scenario where you would be running in this shoe. So there you have it as far as the closest comps to the Cloudultra Pro here. I do have other comps in mind. I think I'm going to do probably an extended comparison with this shoe. Maybe bring out some other trail super shoes, and maybe if they're not super comparable, at least talk about the differences between this shoe and some of those other ones. Oh, one last thing, lugs. I talked about these one being a bit skimpy at 3.5. These two shoes are also 3.5. This one actually lists on the outsole 2.5/3.5. So you've got 3.5 on the outside, 2.5 very shallow down the middle here. This one again, I believe 3.5 on the Puma here. Not too much difference, so I'm not gonna, give it too many demerits for being a skimpy outsole here, being that it's in the class of these shoes and they're all within that range, so they're kind of hitting the same spot that these other shoes are. Let me know if you have any other comparisons in mind for this shoe, test runs that you'd like to see. As usual, like and subscribe to Humble Running. I'll definitely be out putting some more miles in the shoe. I have a lot of other cool super shoes that I need to test out and get some miles in, but this shoe is so fun and so smooth to run in. I'll definitely be putting more miles into this, and what better time than A/B comparison testing? So let me know what you'd like to see. Any more questions, things I possibly forgot to cover in this? Maybe I'm a little scrambled today. This was a bit of a recovery run. My brain is not fully recovered from the race, and my legs are certainly not. So if I missed anything, let me know down in the comments, and I'll catch you at the next one. Thank you for watching.